Are you starting? Okay. What I was gonna say to Corbin's thing is that he does mature. I did notice that watching, like, having watched none of the black and white episodes, only watched bits and pieces of the Ruby and Sapphire stuff, and or I guess it was called Advanced, whatever, and only watching maybe the first half of X and Y and not necessarily the XYZ series, although I did get to a couple earlier episodes. I actually really do like that series.
What, X and Y?
Yeah, the X and Y TV series is really good. But here's the problem though. I think he matures, but he kind of doesn't, because he matures up until, say, like, when they go into like the Gold and Silver, the GS series of Pokemon. But once he gets to the next league, everything kind of stays static, because he just sort of... What are you doing? I was just checking in. Wait. I'm not finished. He matures up until the end of the first season, but like very few times does anyone recognize him as like this really important character or this like super like trainer or anything, even though he's like gone through a whole bunch of generations of Pokemon, at least in terms of the games and the characters and stuff. No one really like actually just stops and says, Ash, oh my god, you're the legendary Ash, you're like the most famous person ever. Like, no one says that. And it's just a really weird thing that, like, in this world he accomplishes crazy things that you as a kid remember finishing in the game, and yet he never actually...
Cut.
Wait, what?
Come on, finish it later. I need to fill up my car.
Why?
I will sing. Alright. Digimon, digital monsters, Digimon are the champion. Change into digital monsters.
Is that all we know?
That was like...
That's all I know.
So you know, like, the first quarter of the song. Anyways, what I was saying before is that I understand Corbin's side of it, where he says that Ash doesn't change because in order for a kid to associate with Ash, they needed to keep Ash the same age. And he does actually age.
Sure, he doesn't age.
No, he does actually age. He is, like, physically, or hypothetically, he's like, I think in X and Y, they actually do say that he's a little older. Like, he's maybe around 11 or 12 years old or something like that. But in Japan, he's actually listed as being closer to like 14. And my only problem with it is that I don't necessarily think that he has to remain 10 years old in order for people to find a commonality with him. I think that if they did age him just a little bit and they still kept the tone of the TV series the same, I'm pretty sure it would still attract the attention of younger kids.
I think
right? Because they would look up to Ash as like this sort of, rather than seeing him as themselves, they would look up to Ash as like this like role model almost, is the way that I put it.
I think he should get a goatee. Grow goatee, that'd be sweet.
Grow goatee, no. And the other thing is that it would have been interesting that if they did grow him up, or if they did make a drastic change to him, that maybe they decided to have like a different character be the main character. Because they did actually make a short mini-series, I forget what they were called, but there was like on one of the Pokemon anniversaries, they released a mini-series that was this, like a miniature story arc that had a different character as the main character, but it was only for a couple episodes, and I think there was at least one of them where Ash sort of intermingled with it, and I think it was during the advanced ones or something.
Oh,
I just
like
remember seeing it as a kid. What?
I like the advanced series.
And anyways, so I think that there could have been a way that they could have had, you know, Ash become, or a different character become the main character that Ash has associated with or something. Can you imagine if one of the younger kids that usually travels with him, because they seem to always pair him up with like a girl and a young kid and then like maybe another dude or something.
Yeah, but in the first series, like when Pokemon first started, there was Ash, Misty, Brock. Brock is older than Ash.
Yeah.
And then they pair him up with May and what's-her-face, and then somebody else in the later series. I lost track a long time ago, but in my opinion, if they tried to change it now, it probably wouldn't work, and the Pokemon industry might crash.
No. I'm not saying. It's too late for them to change it. That's the problem that I have right now. And I'm not like demanding that it does change.
Well, they could find some way, like, with some things, they have like a period, like in a lot of movies, like a lot of movies, they have like the main character at the beginning of the movie, and then they have like 20 years later, you know, it's like, okay, well, maybe they could do that with Pokemon, where it's like 20 years later, Ash is now 30. When did Pokemon come out in Canada officially? 95 or what?
No, probably like 98.
No,
all right, so
I think it was around like 95-ish.
No, it
okay,
wasn't.
Whatever, 98. We'll call it 98 just for argument's sake.
I'm pretty sure that I got into it when I was just around 10 years old. So,
but you're not that much older than me, and I got into it when I was about 6. So, like, my dad bought me my first Pokemon game when I was about 6. It was Pokemon Red. So,
oh no,
I was about 6. So that would have been 98. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right.
So we'll just call it 98. So that's 18 years. So Ash should be about 28 now. Ish.
And you should have a family and 2 kids and a puppy and a birdie.
But
and a house.
Maybe an Eevee and a Pidgey. I mean, it's Pokemon.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Ooh, Eevee, that'd be sweet.
You know, the weird thing is, there is an episode where you do actually just see regular animals in it.
Oh yeah, it is weird.
Where, like, you do see, like, a regular deer, and you do see, like, regular bees. And it's a really bizarre thing. But
there's controversy over that. You know, there's the original Pidgey card has Pidgey pulling a worm, like an actual worm, not like a Caterpie or a Weedle out of the ground, and people have problems with that. And
there's theories that, like, that the world, like, eats Pokemon as sustenance, like they cook Magikarp like you would sushi or something, because there's like fried Magikarp or something in one episode. Where else are they going to
get their meat from? They have to, you know, they probably raise Tauros like cattle and slaughter them for food, you know, they have to get their meat from somewhere.
And milk from milk tanks.
Yeah, you know.
They do get milk from milk tanks.
Yeah, there was an episode about that.
Yeah, there was. I watched that one.
Are just basically animals.
Yeah.
You know, they're just animals that you capture with Pokeballs and train.
And that idea is actually something that I do like, because it's the idea that, like, hey, what if animals could shoot fire out of their butt? Like, that would be funny. That's kind of what it is, but, like, that... I mean, in some ways they could say that maybe that episode was, like, out of continuity, because I recall that it didn't really have, like, any big importance. It was, like, a filler episode kind of thing. So they could just be like, oh, yeah, well, that's not part of, like, the actual continuity kind of thing. Whatever. Okay, the whole point of this conversation is comparing Digimon and Pokemon, and, like, which is better, or not which is better necessarily, but, like, which does what in a certain way better. Like, I can't defend Digimon in the sense that I can 100% reliably say that, like, as a TV series, except for, like, the first 3 seasons, that Digimon is, like, a good, super awesome TV show. It's not, because, like, the last 2 ones that they did were sort of not great. They were trying to, like, chase... It was like that the first 3 seasons had a degree of originality, because the characters, some of them were young, some of them were older, some of them were, like, all kinds of different age ranges.
There were new what do you call them? Trainers? I don't even know what you call the Digimon.
Digimon tamers.
Tamers.
Yeah, the Digimon tamers. There were new Digimon tamers, like the original 6 or whatever it was that were at camp. And,
yeah, but they were all different ages. They weren't all like 10 years old or all 6. They grew
up, and then...
Yeah, that's the thing.
There was a new group of people.
Yeah. And the thing... And so, like, up until maybe about season... Like I said, the end of season 3 was really good. And then they had another series that was not bad, but it was trying to, like... It was... You know, Digimon is weird because it has... The way that their Digi-evolutions happen are very different from Pokemon. Because in Digimon...
But Digimon are like the song says, Digimon digital monsters. Like... My big question is, where the hell did the Digimon come from? Did some computer programmer create them and then they evolve on their own?
Corbin is, like, almost completely just wrote, like, the opening are like the backstory of season 3, because in season 3 they established that like the digital world was or that the Digimon were created by a programmer as like a like AI program, and that they eventually evolved and became Digimon like this.
What about that old man? I forgot his name, but he was like friends with the original 6 tamers or whatever.
I think he was maybe more like a guide. In the first season, it's a little different, because in the first season there's not a whole lot of like explanation as to the origins of the digital world. The only idea that is very obvious is that the digital world, as the name suggests, is like a kind of like a virtual pocket dimension that exists in the World Wide Web, because at the time the internet was still kind of a new thing, and it was becoming very big. And so that there was this idea that the digital world was like a parallel dimension that exists because of the birth of the internet, and that somehow it came into existence because of programs existing, and then suddenly like maturing and changing into like almost living, breathing things. And so the same idea was kind of in season 3, but it was different, because in season 3 it was created by a individual, that a man created the AI that evolved into Digimon. And the weird thing is that when the Digimon start affecting the real world, their explanation is kind of cool and a little bizarre to sort of just accept as like fact, but it's that somehow the Digimon evolved to a point where they gained kind of like, you could almost say that it's like borderline mystical, that their existence has transcended programming. And so that when they start appearing in the real world, their explanation is that the molecules in the air started to solidify and then eventually gave form to the physical versions of the Digimon. So that when they entered the real world, like, and they passed some sort of gate or something, they essentially like just popped out of thin air, literally, because of all the molecules and like atoms and dust particles somehow joining together and giving them a physical form. Which is a very crazy idea, but it was still really, really good. And like I said, after that, because Digimon is in many ways is very different from Pokemon, it tried to chase different avenues. It's tried to become a little bit like Power Rangers in season 4, and then in season 5 it was a little closer to like what Pokemon is, where it was like a much younger character, or back to a young character, back to like a happy-go-lucky kind of story. And I think what they should have done is they should have stuck with the way that they were going with their ideas in seasons 1 through 3, is that they were kids TV shows, but they were mature for what they were, and they were a little distinct because of that. And so like the games, on the other hand, is kind of all over the place. There are some Digimon games that are really awesome, like Cyber Sleuth, and there are some, or even the original PlayStation Digimon game, and there are some games that are just garbage, and not very good at all. And there's also no consistency. So there's no like, it's not like Pokemon where there's like Generation 1 and Generation 2. It's kind of like, oh, here's just a new Digimon game that happens to have 1 or 2 new Digimon. And that's the other thing. There isn't really like a whole lot of Digimon when you compare it to Pokemon. There's very few, actually.
Yeah,
it's probably like half the size of the total amount of Pokemon when Sun and Moon comes out. So Pokemon will be at like 1,000 when Sun and Moon comes out, and Digimon is only about half that.
Okay, can I interject? Okay, so thinking about Digimon and thinking about Pokemon, it occurs in its own realm. Pokemon are like, there's no such thing as a cat and a dog. There's such thing as an Eevee and a Meowth, That's a cat and a dog. And Birds is a Pidgey, and Worms is like
Weedle,
Caterpie, those guys.
Wurmple,
whatever you want, whatever Pokemon you want to.
They do
name.
technically still call it Earth, though. That's the one thing I'll say.
Well, they just get rid of the concept of animals because that's boring, I mean, animals are really cool if you study them, but I'm not a zoologist. I don't want to be a zoologist. Maybe I'll be a Pokemonologist. I don't know. But anyways, my whole point is that if you look at Digimon has Digimon, and then doesn't Tai and his sister have like a pet cat or something?
Well, yeah, because like Digimon takes place on like it's not like actual real Earth, but it's supposed to be Earth. It takes place on the real world. Tai lives in Tokyo or something like that. The cool thing is that the Digimon movie, the like almost the only movie aside from like the anniversary thing that came out, has a mini movie, has like two mini movies in it. One is a weird sticking around connection weird thing